Given the diagram below, approximate to the nearest foot how many feet of walking distance a person saves by cutting across the lawn instead of walking on the sidewalk. So here we have the sidewalk. And there's the lawn that we could cut across. Probably save us some distance and some time, right? Let's find out. So what we know is that this sidewalk has a length of x, and this sidewalk has a length of x plus 2. And the lawn, if you cut across that way, would be only 20 feet. So in order to figure out what x is, we have to relate the known to the unknown. This is a right triangle, so that the hypotenuse is 20. So the Pythagorean Theorem tells us that the sum of the squares of the legs equals the square of the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse we know is 20 feet. The legs, there's an x plus 2. That relates the known to the unknown in an equation, and then we can solve the equation for the variables. So let's simplify by squaring these. X squared is x. X plus 2 squared, we're going to have to multiply x plus 2 times another x plus 2. So that's going to be x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 4. So if I just combine those like terms, that's x squared plus 4x plus 4. So this is the expansion of that. 20 squared is 400. Then we do have like terms on the left side here. Together that's 2x squared plus 4x plus 4 to simplify on the left side. And so this is a quadratic equation. You see it's degree 2. I don't know if it's factorable, but in order to figure out, I have to get this to be 0 on one side. So I'm going to subtract 400 so that there's 0 on the right. Then on the left, 2x squared plus 4x minus 396. And definitely I can tell that when I look to try to factor this side, they have a 2 in common. So let me factor 2 out from these terms and divide to see what remains. So x squared plus 2x minus 198 equals 0. And factors of 198, I don't know, but those are some big numbers. So let me just use the quadratic formula here. I'm not worried about this 2 factor because 2 will never equal 0, and in fact I could just divide 2 from both sides of the equation, and then x squared plus 2x minus 198 equals 0 divided by anything is still 0. So I can use the quadratic formula. This is equal to 0, so I'm going to solve for the middle term. And then a is 1, b is 2, and c is negative 198. So negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. We want to simplify what's in the radical. 2 squared is 4. There's 2 negatives, so that's plus. 4 times 198 is 792. All over 2 times 1, which is 2. So we can add together under the radical. 4 plus 792 is 796. And then let's see if we can simplify that. So let's see if we can simplify 796, get some prime factors here. That 2 goes in 398 times. 2 goes in 199, which doesn't have any factors. So we do have 2 factors of 2. So that's going to simplify to square root of 4, which is 2, and the 199 stays inside, all over 2. And, well, They just want me to approximate to the nearest foot, so that's my clue that I don't really need to simplify this. If I did, that's negative 1 plus or minus root 199 over 1, which it doesn't need. So let's see which of these answers is going to make sense, because that's two answers there, right? Negative 1 plus root 199 and negative 1 minus root 199. So if I do minus, this is going to be a negative number. I don't want that. So let's do negative 1 plus root 199, which is approximately 13.107, and we want to round to the nearest foot, so that's gonna round to 13. We're gonna stay right there, and it's the nearest foot, so about 13. So 13 plus 2 makes this 15 feet about. And so how much distance are we saving? That's the question. How much distance are we saving? So if we were to walk the sidewalk, we'd be walking x, which is 13, plus x plus 2, which is 15. So that's a total of 28 feet. How much would we be walking if we walked the lawn? That's 20 feet, right? So how much feet are we saving? Let's take the difference. 28 minus 20, that's 8 feet saved. That answers the question when they asked us to the nearest foot. How many feet would a person save by cutting across the lawn instead of walking the sidewalk? Sidewalk is 28 feet walking distance altogether. The lawn is 20 feet, so we'd be saving 8 feet by cutting across there. For number 2, an object is thrown upward from the top of a 200-foot cliff with a velocity of 12 feet per second. The height h in feet of the object after t seconds is modeled by this equation. So everything that we just said, that's in the equation. Don't need to worry about that. How long after the object is thrown will it be 100 feet from the ground? So question is how long? That's t. Solve for t when we are 100 feet off the ground, so height of 100. Round the answer to the nearest tenth means we're probably going to have an irrational answer again that we have to round. So let's see, if we put 100 in for h, everything else stays the same. Then that gets us an equation here that we can solve for t. First we need to get 0 on one side, so let's subtract 100 from both sides. So 0 is negative 16t squared plus 12t plus 100. So we want to see if we can factor out a common factor here. Since the first term is negative, I'm definitely going to factor out a negative, and it looks like they have 4 in common. So let's divide negative 4 from all of these terms to see what remains. That'll be a positive 4t squared, a minus 3t, and a minus 25. And then I could try to factor, but I know this is going to be irrational, so what if I just divide negative 4 from both sides of the equation? Then 0 is 4t squared minus 3t minus 25. Just gets those numbers smaller for when I'm going to use the quadratic formula. So a is 4, b is negative 3, and c is negative 25. And we're going to solve for that middle variable here. So t equals, the opposite of negative is positive 3, plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times 4 times negative 25, all over 2 times 4. So we want to simplify what's under the radical there. Negative 3 squared is 9. There's 2 negatives, so that'll be plus 16 times 25. That's 400. All over 2 times 4, which is 8. So we can still add together 400 plus 9. And I'm not really too interested in simplifying, I guess, because I am rounding, right? Round answer to the nearest tenth of a second. So first I just need to separate the two answers so I know which one I'm going to use for this problem. There's a 3 plus root 409 over 8, and then the 3 minus root 409 over 8. Root 409 is going to be more than 3, so that answer is going to be negative, and time can't be negative, so that doesn't make sense. So let's use the 3 plus root 409, put that in our calculator. Okay. 3 plus root 409, and then divide by 8. And make sure you add the square root first and then divide the 8. Don't try to add the quotient because then it will divide first, so be careful. That should be 2.9029, etc. We run around to the nearest tenth. So since there's a 0 there, we're going to stay at 2.9 seconds. It'll take 2.9 seconds to get to 100 feet, which was what the question was asking.